goodness, guys. I am back with another video. Thank you for stopping by the channel. Make sure you like the video, give it a thumbs up. It appears that Donald Trump cell phone, it says here, they got the goods. His White House cell phone was cracked open by the DOJ, the Department of Justice. You know, Trump, he has all kind of stuff going on. Look at this, guys, right here. I mean, this is just one of the things that he has going on. Look, grand jury. This is the USA versus Donald Trump. Conspiracy to defraud the United States of America. He was the president of the USA. Indictment. The grand jury charges that at all times material to this indictment on or about the date and at the approximate time stated below. We're going to have to get into this, but I'm going to give you just a tad bit right now. The defendant, Donald J. Trump, was the 45th president of the U.S. and a candidate for re-election in 2020. He lost the 2020 presidential election. Despite having lost, the defendant was determined to remain in power. So for more than 2 months following the election day on November the 3rd, 2020, the defendant spread lies that there had been outcome determinative fraud in the election and that they had actually won. Y'all remember the insurrection? It says these claims were false and the defendant knew they were false, but the defendant repeated and widely disseminated them anyway. To make his knowingly false claims appear legitimate, create an intense national atmosphere of mistrust and anger, and erode public faith in the administration of the election. And that's exactly what he did, y'all. And now they have his personal cell phone, one of them. They've cracked the code and they know exactly what he was doing, who he was talking to, and what he was saying. You know, Big Brother is always listening. Number 3 says, the defendant had a right, like every American, to speak publicly about the election and even to claim falsely that there had been outcome determinative fraud during the election and that he had won. He was also entitled to formally challenge the results of the election through lawful and appropriate means. Lawful and appropriate means, guys, such as by seeking recounts or audits of the popular vote in states or filing lawsuits challenging the ballots and the procedures. He had a right to do that. Okay. Indeed, in many cases, the defendant did pursue these methods of contesting the election results. His efforts to change the outcome in any state through recounts, audits, or legal challenges were uniformly unsuccessful. It says shortly after election day, the defendant also pursued unlawful means of discounting legitimate votes and subverting the election results. In doing so, the defendant perpetrated 3 criminal conspiracies. Y'all want to get into it real quick? Let's do it. A conspiracy to defraud the United States by using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to impair, obstruct, and defeat the lawful federal government function by which the results of the presidential election are collected, counted, and certified by the federal government in violation of 18 U.S.C. 371. That's what he did. B, a conspiracy to corruptly obstruct and impede the January 6th congressional proceeding at which the collected results of the presidential election are counted and certified. The certification proceeding, remember when they all broke into the White House, he had all them crazy folks up there? And C, a conspiracy against the right to vote and to have one's votes counted in violation of 18 U.S.C. 241. And we're going to stop that right there for now. And what we're going to do, we're going to listen to what they had to say about his phone.
tries to take a fairly assertive and proactive approach to prosecuting Trump for the coup. And this concerns a mystery surrounding Trump's actions during the January 6th plotting, the speech, the insurrection, and those long, tense hours when Trump stood by while his fans committed what is now a convicted sedition. Some of that is, of course, so well known that people look up and say, what are we still debating in court? I've told you before, the process takes time. But part of the process is getting more evidence and a better view of how this all went down, including potentially who Trump was talking to or messaging with, who he was communicating with as the sedition.
Who was he talking to? You know, there's a lot of crooked people that we don't know about. There is a lot of people involved in this. He didn't do this alone, y'all. He didn't do it alone.
Unfolded. We know Trump spent part of the time in his private White House dining room. We know that he watched the violence unfold on television. We know that during the period of that tense time, and you really have to bring yourself back to how it felt, no one knew how many people might die or who would be killed.
I just remember watching people storm the Capitol going crazy, banging on the doors, jumping over just going crazy. I mean, I'm like, what are we not in the good old USA? I remember it like it was yesterday because I am a political junkie.
Or how long it would take to get order again. But during that very period, he posted online on what was then called Twitter about condemning Mike Pence as his fans hunted Pence down. That's a lot of what's known. There's other things, though.
He condemned his vice president. He actually wanted to sick those mad, wild people on the vice president who was he was in the Capitol running for his life, being rushed out because Mike Pence was there to finalize and basically say, yes, this is how it is. We have a new president. He sicked those people on him and Nancy Pelosi. It was crazy, guys. He tried to stage a coup.
You don't fully know. And that's because there is a 7-hour gap in what are normally meticulous White House call logs. And not on just any day, but on the obviously quite suspicious and now criminally investigated day of January 6th from, as you see here in this Post report, around the 11 a.m. hour all the way up to about 7 p.m. Now, that has been something that many people have wanted answers to. Journalists, research.
Let me see if I can pull up a picture of him while we're listening to this, guys. Okay, I have this picture. Let's keep this picture up here while we listen to Ari Melber on MSNBC. Go check him out.
Search that kind of thing. People call each other. People ask questions. Sometimes you find a hint or a clue or a leak from people inside the White House. Why did the logs go missing? You may recall missing material was a big part of what ultimately undid the Nixon presidency in Watergate. Well, now there are clues. According to Jack Smith's new court filing, he has obtained what one investigator in this area has called the holy grail of the evidence against Trump, his own cell phone data. Let me repeat that, a lot flying around. This is the cell phone data of Donald Trump that may have clues about what he did do or didn't do or what he lied about on January 6th. This filing indicating they've extracted and processed data from the White House cell phones used by the defendant, that is defendant Trump. And the team reviewed and analyzed data on the defendant's phone and determined the usage of these phones through the post-election period, including on and around, and that's standard legal language, basically, they got him, they got the evidence for Jan 6, 2021. They've specifically identified, they write, periods of time during which the defendant.
So they have Trump's cell phone data and the history of what he did those 7 hours, who he talked to, who he spoke with, who he called. Trump is one alleged criminalistic ex-president.
His phone was unlocked and the Twitter application was open on January 6th. That's important because you can imagine a defense where someone says politicians like the president have many people potentially tweeting or writing online for their behalf. Smith also states they have the phone data of an individual one. It's an anonymous individual. So experts say this is the kind of thing that can add to the evidence of what Trump did or didn't do, which can box him in. That goes to his public conduct, that he really did send out this or that message or tweet, and to his secret conduct of who he called and how long they spoke and who texted him and what he replied and what that says about the larger defense that he will try to make. Because if part of that defense is, hey, a lot was going on, or I didn't know this, or as soon as I heard there was violence, I did tell them to be peaceful, well, the evidence may say something different about those kind of claims. This could also show whether, quote, Trump personally approved or sent, as I mentioned, that very fateful tweet attacking Pence. That's how Politico puts it. The January 6th committee did not get this far. Indeed, in that final report, which we've discussed here and recently discussed with their Vice Chair Cheney, the committee was clear that it was, quote, unable to locate official records of Trump's telephone calls that afternoon.
So they have the records that prove that Trump tweeted out pretty much telling people to attack the vice president of the United States of America. This is coming from the president, the leader of the free world. This man is crazy.
And the witnesses asked about this, because this has been an area of quite a bit of investigative interest, either wouldn't answer in those depositions and hearings, or they would claim they had no idea.
So are you aware of any phone call by the President of the United States to the Secretary of Defense that day?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Are you aware of any phone call by the President of the United States to the Attorney General of the United States that day?
No.
Are you aware of any phone call by the President of the United States to the Secretary of Homeland Security that day?
I'm not aware of that, no.
Did you speak to President Trump on his private cell phone on either January 5th or January 6th?
Once again, on advice of counsel, I will assert my Fifth Amendment right to respectfully decline to answer your question.
Let's walk through in plain English what we just saw there. The second clip is of a defendant, Roger Stone, who we've heard so much about, basically saying that to truthfully answer whether they spoke that day, him and the then loser of the 2020 election, outgoing President Trump, if he admitted or spoke about whether they had that contact, that could implicate him in a crime. That's not good, but as we've said, it's also his right in that kind of proceeding to invoke the Fifth Amendment. But that would go to him not wanting to say it. If there is enough phone data swirling around that Jack Smith has of the president's phone, or phones the president's used over Roger Stone and others, they may be able to prove up that question in court without Stone's testimony. On the other side, we heard Liz Cheney's disembodied voice, the nature of the way they shot the deposition, asking the basic questions that you'd ask any commander-in-chief. Again, if the Capitol is attacked as a national security event, it is now, of course, as I mentioned, a convicted sedition. It doesn't matter who's doing the sedition. It's not supposed to, right? Could be a foreign terrorist group. Could be domestic terrorists. Could be people who claim that they...
Again, this is Ari Melber from MSNBC, just giving a breakdown, a short, quick breakdown of, what's going on with Trump's cell phone and how they have acquired it, the DOJ, and they now know who he talked to and who he tweeted and all of that good stuff during those 7 hours of the insurrection where he did nothing. And he allegedly also tweeted out an attack, something urging those people, the insurrectionists people, to attack the Vice President Mike Pence. And might I add, Mike Pence still stood firm behind him. Child, please, I'd have threw him under the bus so quick.
Support this or that politician or the sitting president. But it is a baseline obligation of the commander-in-chief to defend the country. Everybody knows that. And so what...
The commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, was supposed to defend the country. What was he doing? He was trying to destroy our rights, right to a free elections. He's tried to stage a coup and say, no, I know you all voted for someone else, but I still want to be president. I don't want to go.
He was illustrating there was the lack of awareness and thus the possibility that it didn't happen, that Trump ever lifted a finger to anyone, from the military to the attorney general to anyone, to try to defend the United States. Why? Because you don't defend, allegedly, against the sedition, insurrection, and attack that you yourself planned, started, and wanted. I say allegedly because, again, this is all going to be litigated by Jack Smith in the coup trial. Trump's lawyers say that he is innocent. He is legally presumed innocent, and they argue that calls or missing calls are not enough to prove the coup case. Now, meanwhile, John Eastman, of course, one of the architects of the coup, we do know the FBI long ago seized his cell phone in New Mexico. You've seen that video. This was long before his Georgia indictment. The feds were on him. We know Jeffrey Clark.
Can you imagine the President of the United States of America trying to stage a coup against the United States of America and its people, us? And there are people that still want this man to be president. Some of them could be your neighbor, your co-workers. They're everywhere. I'm just saying.
Faced the feds in a lawful search, which was quite historic. Also had Nixon era echoes, because there you see the feds pulling him out in his pajamas of his home. Those are the same law enforcement officials for the federal government he used to oversee at the DOJ. They came to search his home under a lawful order, and they're going to find out what, if anything, is in that evidence. So what are on these phones? And what is the counter argument if you're pursuing this kind of case and you're trying to prove a negative, like, oh,
What's on the phone? Can we hear the recordings? Yeah, I'm gonna tell you something. That man is a crook, and he did some crooked things on that day, allegedly. I just feel it in my spirit. Okay.
you didn't call anyone, you didn't reach out to the Secretary of Defense. Is that enough for Jack Smith in a case that we've mentioned? He is now asking the Supreme Court to greenlight and fast track. So there are answers. Either way, it could be good or bad news for Trump. Trump could beat this case, but Jack Smith asking the Supreme Court to get involved. So there are answers to everything we just talked about tonight here, the phone data, the nature of the conspiracy, whether Trump didn't want to intervene in something that he had actually planned, or whether he can ultimately prove somehow that there's enough reasonable doubt that the government didn't carry its burden. We're back with David Kelly, my former boss in law and the former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York.
Guys, Trump is a hot mess. All right, here we go. Let's listen.
Welcome, David. Look at what Jack Smith, according to the filings, got a hold of. What do you see there as a prosecution roadmap?
When I first saw it, I said, geez, this is really compelling. Let's talk a little bit about what you can do with that evidence. First off, you're not going to have the contents of any phone calls. It's not like a wiretap. It's unclear from his submission whether or not there's actually information.
So they won't
there's actual text messages.
They won't actually, looks like, have the audio of the phone calls that he made. So let's listen in to see what else he has to say.
If you can actually read the text messages. But even if there's not, this is still really powerful evidence, because what a prosecutor will do is take the whole series of calls, when the calls were made, to whom the calls were made, and really chart it out and draw connections to incidents that coincide. So in other words, let's, just
sort of like the Tim Norman trial, when they had all those cell phones and data and all of that stuff, and they got the pinging off the towers. Honey, it can be done. We've seen it done before, and we will see it done again with Donald Trump.
Hypothetically, he makes a phone call to Roger Stone, and then suddenly the Oath Keepers are off and running to the Capitol. So it can be very compelling evidence about, just drawing, connecting the dots and drawing connections between phone calls to particular people and then incidents that happened in the wake of those calls.
All right, guys. And that is all of that video. That's Ari Melber from MSNBC. Go check it out. Go check him out. Listen, I appreciate the support. Guys, this is interesting. Donald Trump, as I say, president of the United States of America, and he tried to stage a coup. I'm going to continue to follow this now that they have his cell phone documentation for those 7 hours. That insurrection went on for 7 hours. Those people were storming that Capitol. A lot of people have been convicted and put in prison for that incident. Oh, yeah, they thought they were going to get away, honey, but they did not. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. We're all about social justice over here. Remember, like this video. Share us out. All right, it's your girl, Philly Phil. I'll be back again real soon, keeping you informed and up to date on all of the latest social justice news. Thank you for watching.